Hello, and thank you so much for being with us today. Happy Thursday, everybody. I am meteorologist Leah Pizzetti, and this is Weather Out West, where we showcase what's happening weather-wise across the western United States. You'll find coverage from the Pacific Northwest to the Mountain West and California to Arizona in the Southwest. We'll start today in Arizona, where the monsoon continues to impact the Southwest. Meteorologist Ginger Jeffries in Phoenix is tracking where the storms are heading today.
I'm meteorologist Ginger Jeffries. We'll look at your weather out west. Lots of active weather rolling through the region yesterday, but as I mentioned, it was location. Didn't quite get enough sunshine yesterday to allow that energy to convect overnight, so we're really just looking for some shower activity on the west side of the state. Yesterday, it was all the east side and in the higher elevations. This is just a tremendous photo from one of our 12 News weather watchers, Diane Spear in Cottonwood. You can see very angry skies. We've got all those clouds and then a pretty thick rain shaft coming down. And this is what I mean. Location. This guy right here, not getting any rain. This guy right here, just getting a deluge. But again, they're lasting a very short amount of time, even though they are powerful as these cells move on through. So today across Arizona on this Thursday, daytime highs, okay, still going to be on the shy side. We'll take it. Below normal, we like it in July. 101 for Phoenix. Meantime, as you can see, we've got some rain on the west side of the state today, from Kingman to Quartzsite. There's even some aerial flood advisories posted just near the border with California. Those are going to expire this morning, but as these cells pop up and dissipate, you know, those advisories will accompany. Now, in higher elevations, so high country regions like Grand Canyon and Flagstaff, you too are going to be seeing some pop-up showers, but it looks like the southeast quadrant from Safford into Tucson, a nice little break after a pretty active past 24 hours. Now we still have an opportunity for the valley to see some showers. As a result, our monsoon meter is a 3, but we are the most minimal action because look at this. Western Arizona has a 4, and of course the higher elevations have 6s and 7s, as yes, we're still going to squeeze a couple drops out of the sky this morning into the evening hours. So take a look. You can see radar is showing that we certainly have some brighter banding right along the I-10, but everything pushing away from us. And as I mentioned, we've got that aerial flood advisory. This goes through the early morning hours because some of these cells capable of producing over 1.5 inches of rain every hour. They're not lasting that long, but as you can see now, we're still continuing to watch a few very spotty isolated cells move through the metro, with the main focus being west of the valley. And by about, I'd say 8:30, it looks like everything's going to lift into the higher elevations. There's still kind of some remnant that's just going to be bubbling up. So it's not off the table for this evening. But again, if we get any of these showers, they're going to dissipate so rapidly, they're not going to warrant any kind of advisory status. So as far as our rain through Thursday, there's still a hint for the metro, but most, if not all of it, is staying to the higher elevations and west of the region. And we should pick up over 1 inch of rain above about 6,000 feet. So how is it mapping out? Well, as you can see, we still have a 30% chance today, but next week, this is kind of getting interesting. By the middle part of the work week, it looks like we've got another round of monsoon moisture coming our direction right now. We've got 30 and 40% opportunity for the metro and White Mountains. I think this is going to stay to the southeast. So high country, not really the focus next week. But again, until about Saturday morning, we're still looking for some rain showers in the high country. Futurecast showing you exactly what I'm talking about through Thursday into Saturday and Sunday. Just this remnant moisture continues to kind of bring around that opportunity for some showers, which will keep us on the muggy side. Temperature wise, it's also going to keep us on the mild side. We've got 70s in Flagstaff today through Saturday, a little bit of a warm up on Sunday, and then for the valley, still a weather impact alert day courtesy of these storms that are moving through. Temperature wise though, hey, for July to stay at or below the normal range, this is not a bad forecast for the valley.
Thank you, Ginger. Yeah, low 100s. It's a cakewalk in Arizona in the summer. Storms are also lingering in Colorado, but another threat now looms as well. Smoke from wildfires is impacting air quality in and around Denver. Our meteorologists in Denver are watching how bad the air quality could get today.
Hello from Denver, Colorado. I'm meteorologist Kathy Sabin, and finally a quieter weather day. A little bit of sunshine, some fun clouds around the area. Yesterday, a line of severe storms dropped heavy rain, large hail, and damaging winds. We did enjoy a day in the 70s yesterday, though, compliments of that cool front that rolled through in the morning. Today, though, the ridge is shifting east and the plume of moisture going with it, but there's still enough available moisture in Colorado that we can't rule out a thunderstorm or two. Thankfully, the severe weather threat today is much lower, and that will be the case moving into Friday as well. And with more sunshine, that means, well, the sun's going to come out and we are going to see temperatures soar back into the 90s. So we're kind of in that, marginal garden variety thunderstorm outlook over the next couple of days. Can never say it's going to be entirely quiet in Colorado this time of year, especially with residual moisture from the storms that moved in yesterday. You'll notice that the winds out of the southwest are transporting the storms from the southwest to the northeast today, and there's about a 20 to 30% chance that we'll see a shower here in Denver and some stronger storms from Lamar and Springfield down to the Trinidad area. We've been dealing with poor air quality thanks to wildfire smoke from fires burning over western Colorado, Utah, and Arizona, so the air quality is not great. The smoke plume, though, starting to thin this afternoon and also starting to be pushed northward, complements of building high pressure. So those in sensitive groups were asking, to limit outdoor time and exercise. Just always a good idea when we have bad air like this. So 60s to start this morning in Denver, mid 80s by this afternoon, average highs about 90. We get back there on Friday, close to that number Saturday, and then we're turning up the heat Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Lots of sunshine. Summer heat returns with temperatures in the mid 90s for about the next week or so.
Over the last several days, we have been tracking and covering the wildfires burning along the western slope in northern Arizona, as well as southern Utah. And while firefighters work to contain and get a handle on these fires, we here on the other side of the mountains have been tracking the smoke produced by these wildfires. Now, you might wonder how that smoke gets up and over the mountains from the west to the east. At first thought, you might think it's the surface level winds. But when you think about it, how would the winds basically at the surface be able to carry that smoke up the mountains and over onto the plains? What it comes down to is something else. You see, when you have these large fires like the ones that are burning along the western slope, they generate their own weather. That allows the smoke to reach the upper levels of the atmosphere. Once that smoke gets up to the upper levels of the atmosphere, it encounters the jet stream, basically consistent winds that can easily push smoke great distances. In fact, there's been mega fires in California along the west coast have produced smoke that has gotten up into the upper levels of the atmosphere, traveled all across the country, and produced poor air quality along the east coast in places like New York. So considering that, it's pretty easy to imagine how smoke from the west can make it up and over the mountains onto the plains.
Thank you for that. Still ahead after the break, the Northwest is clocking in some of the hottest temperatures of the year so far, but that heat is starting to back off. We'll head to Boise and Seattle for a look at the weekend forecast in the Northwest. Welcome back. Heat continues to hit the Northwest. Parts of Idaho are hovering around the triple-digit threshold. Hector Mendoza is in Boise with a look at the hot weather now, but the relief that is arriving just in time for the weekend.
Hello, I'm Hector Mendoza, forecasting here out of Boise, Idaho, and one of the things that has been hard to find is a bad sunset and sunrise photo. They've been looking absolutely fantastic, and this is just one of those sunsets out in McCall at the Payette Lake there. Lynn Johnson posted this on our Idaho Weather Watchers Facebook page, and just look at those beautiful colors in the sky mixing in on some of those clouds, and just a perfect way to end off the day looking all on off into the water. The other thing we noticed is a beautiful sunrise this this morning, but we did see some of those hazier skies. This is looking off into Bogus Basin, and there you could see the Treasure Valley off into the distance. As we fast forwarded through till about 9 o'clock, we could see that sunshine on full display, and again, you could see those lightly hazy conditions there off into the distance, which is pretty much what we're going to be continuing to contend with at least through today, tomorrow, and possibly into Saturday as wildfire smoke kind of comes and goes in from the west. But as we look at some of the temperatures, we've been into the 90s since about the 11th there on Friday. We've been at or above 90 degrees. We hit triple digits for the 4th time this year on Monday for the 14th to start off the week. Then we've dropped down, but we'll continue into the 90s, but expecting today to get closer to this number there at 101, as we're going to possibly hit triple digits in some spots here in the Treasure Valley, and that hot streak continues. So again, we've seen those temperatures at or above 90 degrees for the past couple of days, and that looks to continue at least to the middle of the week. The last time we saw a long, prolonged stretch of 90-plus degree days was last year from July 31st to August 12th. So looking at the next couple of days, here's today, 98 degrees for today, with some spots again hitting the triple digits, with mid-80s into the mountains and mid-90s out in places in the Magic Valley. But as we look into the next 10 days, we are going to see those temperatures drop back down to closer to seasonable temperatures and slightly below that average temperature Sunday, Monday into Tuesday. But then after that, we're expecting those temperatures to rise, getting into the mid-90s for Wednesday and Thursday. Some of these temperatures might change as we are looking way far ahead into Friday and into the following weekend, but still expecting to see those temperatures continue into the 90s, and this might be our longest stretch of 90-plus degree days so far this year. And again, the other thing that we've noticed, just like I talked about earlier, some of the hazier conditions we're going to be seeing here in the Treasure and Magic Valleys, that is due to some of the smoke, again, pouring in from the west, and it could impact our air quality as it looks like it diminishes just a bit in portions of Twin Falls. Same thing here in Boise, but some of those conditions will continue as we'll have those hazier skies the next couple of days, as we will continue with some of those conditions. But as we look at today's air quality, it is forecast to stay moderate. We are seeing it right now currently there into that good category, but throughout the rest of the day it could come down to that yellow or moderate category. So those folks that are very, very sensitive to those air particulates and some of the smoke in the air, try to limit your time outdoors, as it'll be sort of a recommendation for those folks that, again, that are very sensitive to those air particulates. But with the setup, this is where we're going to see those temperatures again. This ridge of high pressure continues to come and make its way up north, and that's what's going to bring us those hot temperatures the next couple of days. We do have some moisture that's starting to string in and see some of that sort of thunderstorm activity closer to the Idaho-Nevada border. That's pretty much the similar setup we're going to be seeing for Friday, but for the most part, as we look at the Magic Valley and in other places, could see some of that thunderstorm activity, but here in Boise and up into the mountains, not really looking for that, at least for today. But as we look at the 7-day forecast, we will see temperatures get up into the upper 90s again to wrap up this work week. We'll see those temperatures cool down into the low 90s with lots of sunshine, possibly seeing some breezier conditions come along as we get towards the end of the weekend. We continue with 90-degree temperatures till Tuesday, with another warm-up coming along for the middle.
Thank you, Hector. And not far to the west in Washington, heat is also backing off. Western Washington officially clocked the warmest day of the year so far, with temperatures in the 90s Wednesday. But the cooling is quick to arrive today. Meteorologist Rich Marriott is in Seattle with a look at some areas that are still sitting a little bit warmer than normal, and the cool down that will settle into Seattle by the weekend.
Hi, I'm King 5 meteorologist Rich Merritt, and wow, it was a hot one yesterday for sure. Or at least for people in Puget Sound, it was a hot day. We had 94 degrees out of the airport. Fortunately, nowhere near the record high of 98 set back in 1979. And it is going to be cooler today. And well, this evening you want to go out and enjoy the evening. And one of the reasons is you'll notice sunset time tonight at 9 o'clock. It's our last 9 o'clock sunset of the year. Tomorrow night it's going to be at 8:59 and continue to creep earlier and earlier as we move towards the equinox. But another beautiful day up there in Bellingham. They were in the low 80s yesterday, and they're going to be mostly in the upper 70s today, but looking pretty nice with blue sky and blue water, and not seeing much of that smoke haze up there around Bellingham. Different story there in Everett. Mid-morning, looking out across Position Sound, you really have to look hard to even make out the fact that we have the Olympics out there somewhere in that haze. It's a combination of the wildfire smoke haze that we've had the last couple of days. We've seen a little bit of marine air kind of filter in too, and the two mixed together really cuts down on the visibility a lot. So not as bad as it looks. The worst we have in terms of air quality is a few places have gone a few points into the moderate range, but nothing beyond what we've had the last couple of days. See that same smoke haze and kind of marine air combination showing up there in Tacoma this morning as well, kind of taking the edge off that sunshine today. Looking at our temperatures, this is where you can see it's going to be a much different day than yesterday, because we did see that marine air kind of intrude into the South Sound. Temperatures anywhere from 13 degrees cooler there at the airport, 11 degrees cooler there in Tacoma. So roughly, I've been watching them, it's anywhere from about 5 to 15 degrees cooler than where we were yesterday at this time. So we're starting at a lower point, and so we're not going to get nearly as warm this afternoon, though it's still going to be a pretty warm afternoon out there. Take a look at our first alert 7-day forecast. You can see this is the warmest day for a while. We'll see more marine clouds move in overnight tonight. They should disappear quickly tomorrow, and then we'll start that, continue that cool down into the 70s and pretty much stay there before we warm back up a little bit as we head towards the middle part of next week. Take a look at that wildfire smoke, the model showing that today it kind of hangs over us as that onshore wind starts to pick up, and then as we head towards overnight tonight on through tomorrow, it's going to push it all totally out of Puget Sound. We should clear out and get back to our blue skies as we head towards tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow evening, though we will see the low clouds moving in, and we're going to fall into a pattern of morning clouds and afternoon sun as we head towards Friday and the weekend. Take a look at our air quality. You can see what I'm talking about. A lot of places still in the good range, and the ones that have drifted into the moderate range, just a couple points into that. So mostly we've been looking at anywhere from about 52 to 56 for their AQ values, and they range anywhere from 51 to 100 for a moderate range. So you're really in the very low end of that, and that's going to get back to good as we head towards tomorrow. Take a look at the satellite image this morning. At mid-morning, you can see a pretty good area of low clouds out there, and made its way into the South Sound. We saw a few of those clouds up as far as Tacoma this morning, and that coolness, though, is moving all the way up through the Sound, and you can see until the sun gets a little bit higher, you can kind of make out that smoke haze that we have up over the northern portions this morning. And again, all of that with the increased onshore winds here in the next couple of days, we're going to see just the air gradually clean out, and we'll see some pretty nice blue skies in the afternoons once we burn off the morning clouds. You might be thinking of going into the beaches today. As usual, cold in Puget Sound. The river's still chilly, but the lakes have really warmed up nicely, mostly in the mid to some upper 70s, might be a little bit warmer in some of the smaller lakes out there during the afternoon. So our forecast overall for today, we're going to be calling for sunshine, cooler, highs today in the upper 70s and low to mid 80s. Tomorrow we'll see some areas of morning clouds, but back to mostly sunny, temperatures getting into the mid to upper 70s, maybe touching 80 in some of the warmer spots. And then really for Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, morning clouds with partly sunny afternoons, highs mostly in the 70s. A little warmer on Tuesday. It looks like we'll start to warm a little bit on Wednesday into the upper 70s and low to mid 80s, but that 6 to 10 day temperature forecast, you see we cool right back down to the upper 70s and low 80s as we head towards the following weekend.
Thank you, Rich. I know a lot of people on the West Coast who would be very excited about those 70s. Yeah, that's why Washington summers, they're one to beat. Thanks, Rich. Well, still ahead after the break, we are going to check in on Seattle's neighbors to the east and the south, eastern Washington and Oregon, where wildfire risk is top of mind. Thank you for sticking with us for Weather Out West. We'll now head to eastern Washington, where temperatures are picking up and so is the risk for fires to start and spread. Meteorologist Thomas Patrick is in Spokane, keeping an eye on the red flag warnings now issued.
I'm meteorologist Thomas Patrick in Spokane, Washington. It's been pleasant through the mid part of this week, but that typical July heat is going to start to build back as we head closer towards this weekend. But like what we've been focusing in on every single day this week, well, we continue to track what days are going to be the windiest overall, because our windiest days are also going to lead to the highest fire danger as well. In this case, it's going to be Friday and Saturday, but today, just warmer yet, but still calm in terms of wind. Don't expect any rain chances anytime soon either. As for today, it is going to be near 90 degrees, but that's only a few degrees above average now for July. The last week of July is typically our hottest point of the season. Average high temperature climbs to about 87 at the maximum, so we're not too far away from that. So kind of an average July day without the wind today, but it's back in play for tomorrow. With that being said, fire weather watches will go into effect starting at 2 p.m. on Friday. The fire weather watch is the precursor to red flag warnings. So by this point tomorrow, that should be upgraded into the red flag warning criteria because of those dry and windy conditions that we're going to have for eastern and central Washington. This Columbia Basin area likely going to get the strongest of any westerly or southwesterly winds, upwards of 35 miles per hour. I also think it's not just Friday. Saturday probably will also see red flag warnings, as you'll see here. This is the wind speed forecasting model. You're going to see a lot of yellow, orange, and red shades start to pop up across not just central Washington, but even eastern Washington as well for both Friday and Saturday as well. So I think these next 2 days are going to be the windiest overall for the region. So that will likely prompt higher fire danger. Speaking of which, these are the active fires across northern and eastern Washington. The Green Acres fire in Omak now 50% contained, and that is starting to provide less aggressive fire behavior. Same with the Western Pines fire. Not much fuel left to burn for that fire in particular. As for the Hope fire in Stevens County, this one is going to be the most aggressive. Thankfully, it is outside of what is going to be the windiest region for Friday and Saturday, but of course it is worth monitoring. Speaking of which, drought monitor update for this Thursday. A lot of moderate, severe, and now extreme drought conditions, especially for the Palouse, running the driest and the greatest rain deficit compared to these last couple seasons. No rain on the way either. The jet stream is just going to squiggle through British Columbia and Alberta, so any storm systems that we'll see nearby do miss us to the north and east here. It will provide the wind, close enough for wind, but not close enough for any new rain chances upcoming here. So all sunny sky conditions across both eastern Washington and North Idaho, as temperatures will stay about average for the next week or so, mid 80s and above. Friday will be our hottest day at 91 degrees, but a couple breezy days ahead of us for Friday and Saturday is likely going to prompt red flag warnings for both of those days. So those will be the highest fire danger days that we'll have upcoming here. Notice that we don't have any rain chances anytime soon. It is all sunny skies to finish the week and for the weekend ahead. Tuesday, there's just a chance for showers, but even for Spokane, that's only about 10 to 20%. Most of the rain and storm chances are going to miss eastern Washington well to our north or to our east. So this is very typical for the July season to see decently hot weather and a few breezy days that will lead to higher fire danger. That for this Friday and Saturday.
Now let's head down to Oregon, where the Cascade Mountain Range creates a similar divide that you saw in Washington. Portland and Western Oregon get to tap into that nice Pacific air, helping cool temperatures down after yesterday clocked in the warmest day of the year so far. But the Cascade Mountain Range suck up a lot of that moisture in the middle of the state, creating a different hot and dry climate on the eastern side of Oregon, so fire risk looms there as well. Meteorologist Chris McGinnis is in Portland with all those details.
Hello, I'm meteorologist Chris McGinnis. Our weather story today here across northwest Oregon and southwest Washington is twofold. One, a big cool down from the high heat of yesterday, and also the increased fire threat not helping, or I should say wind and conditions that are not going to help the firefighting effort in Jefferson County. We're talking about the Cram fire. Now that we've got the light of day, we can again start to see that smoke plume there in Jefferson County this morning. You can also see the low cloudiness that has developed along the Oregon coast. More on that in a second. Let's talk about the fire. The air quality alert continues for Jefferson County today and really indefinitely, as long as that now 64,000 acre and growing fire continues, basically uncontained at this point. Here's a look at the smoke plume. For folks in central and eastern Oregon, the wind trajectory here is going to generally keep that smoke plume blowing from west to east across the state. So Jefferson, Wheeler, Crook County, Grant County, and into the Wallowa and Baker County, you're going to have the smoke in your air. You're going to see it and maybe smell it and taste it here over the next couple of days. That's what our smoke modeling shows. The other thing is that what's driving the cool down is that nice blast of Pacific air that has come in and cooled off the west side of the state, but unfortunately, the effect will be both today and tomorrow to drive some pretty gusty afternoon winds through the Columbia River Gorge and out across central and portions of eastern Oregon. Wind gusts could be easily 40, 45 miles an hour in some cases both today and tomorrow. So for that reason, outside of the obvious ongoing firefighting effort that is going on right now in Jefferson County, there's just a general overall increased risk for fire threats. So what that means is that anything that could throw a spark could very quickly become concerning with wildfire concerns in this part of our region both today and tomorrow. Until we get the wind to subside a bit, that's really going to be troublesome. Of course, the other side of the coin here is the cool down that we're going to experience the west side of the state. Yesterday, Troutdale and Eugene hit 98 degrees, not records, but certainly way above average for this time of the year. PDX 97. That 97 was the hottest temperature of the year so far at PDX. If you're done with the heat, you're going to like the news in the forecast. There is no sign of any of that kind of heat in the forecast over the next 7 to 10 days. This is the outlook from the Climate Prediction Center. And it's not real heavily one side or the other. Basically, the takeaway from this map is that there's no sign of extreme heat in the forecast over the next 10 days. So basically, that runs us through the end of the month. We'll see what August holds for us, but in the short term, things are going to be a little bit more comfortable here. Starting with today, 63. Last check on our Wells Fargo sky camera. That's the temperature at PDX. 63 at Hillsboro. Again, Hillsboro was 96 yesterday. The east side of the state, though, still quite warm. In the 9 o'clock hour now, we're already up to 78 in the Dalles. Pendleton already 81. Wildfire smoke and haze in the air. Madras gets up to about 96 today. Eastern Oregon, again, smoky haze in your sky. Burns gets up to about 93, Baker City 92, and a gusty west wind whipping through the central and the east gorge today. Hood River gets to about 90. The Dalles, you're off to a warm start. 95 should not be a problem for you. The beach, as we mentioned, socked in with clouds and fog this morning, usually from this camera here. This is our Chinook Winds Casino Resort camera in Lincoln City. Usually off in the distance, you can see Cascade Head. That's kind of shrouded out for now. The clouds will lift. We'll see some sun there today, this afternoon, but temperatures will be cooler. Yesterday, Astoria hit 79, 66 today. The Valley, again, cooler. Salem was in the upper 90s yesterday. Today, we'll shoot for about 89. Portland and Vancouver were in the upper 80s. Today, we shoot for about 85 in Longview. Yesterday, Kelso was 96, so a significant cool down for us. I mean, warm, but not as warm. And that 7-day forecast shows the cooling trend continuing Friday and into the weekend. Sunday could be a day that we wake up to morning clouds with afternoon highs in the upper 70s.
Still ahead after the break, we'll head down the coast to the great state of California, where the Pacific is also keeping coastal temperatures in check, while others are also feeling the impacts from the monsoonal moisture. All that still ahead. Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us for Weather Out West. Northern California summers can be scorchers, but the region has been lucking out with relatively comfortable summer temperatures for some. Meteorologist Monica Woods is breaking down why some areas in Northern California are feeling relief.
I'm meteorologist Monica Woods with our regional headlines across northern and central California. We're going to keep fog along the coast with afternoon sunshine for the valley. Slightly warmer, sunny in the foothills, but we're going to be tracking some haze in parts of this year. Let's talk about that fog first. Contra Costa County, that's over towards the Bay Area. And you can see the fog just kind of moving in from the coast. Once you get above that elevation, skies clear. We saw some fog in Solano County for Nevada County. Just in the distance, a little bit of haze. We'll talk about that smoke that's moving through parts of the foothills and the Sierra in Stanislaus County. We're going to be wrapping up the Stanislaus County Fair this weekend. Here's a look at how we get that marine intrusion moving through parts of the Delta and the Valley. It also keeps the cool air coming and temperatures below average. It moves in through what we call the Delta. That's the connection between the Pacific Ocean and the Valley. And when we see a pretty good access to that breeze, it really starts to spread that cool air throughout the Valley. And at times, if that wind's strong enough, we get that stratus intrusion as well through the Valley. We've been seeing that the past couple of days. With those westerly winds, that's going to keep the smoke largely blowing over towards the California-Nevada state border, but a bit of that just kind of moving through parts of the foothills and the northern Sierra with some hazy skies. Temperature trend, you can see what that Delta breeze does for us. After hitting a high of 98 on Monday, we dropped our highs to the low 80s on Wednesday. Not the coolest day, though, believe it or not, for the month of July, where we're normally tracking 100s. Instead, the lowest daily maximum temperature in Sacramento, 65 degrees. We have to go all the way back to 1910 and 1974 when we hit that. Our highs for today will be in the upper 80s, lower 90s, a little closer to average for the Central Valley, 80s and 90s for the foothills, and near 80 for the Tahoe Basin. Heading out to the State Fair, we're wrapping things up here with about a week and a half to go after a hot start. Things are starting to moderate quite nicely with low 90s expected through the weekend. We're in the 80s by next week. Great fair forecast there. More morning fog developing along the coast here. We'll see some of that partially move inland, and then things start to clear nicely into the weekend. Forecast a few showers and thunderstorms, mainly in the central and southern Sierra. Getting to those numbers on this Thursday, highs in the 80s for the Tahoe Basin with 80s and 90s down low south of Tahoe into the central Sierra. 83 for Yosemite. We get to 97 for Madera, 83 for Pinehurst, and heading over towards Friant, 98 degrees. So there's still some very warm temperatures once we get farther from that delta breeze. 60s along the coast here for the Monterey Bay Peninsula. We'll see highs in the low 60s. 68 for Santa Cruz, 92 for San Lucas, and Coalinga at 98 degrees. Again, once you get farther from that onshore flow, you get the warmer temperatures. Bay Area forecast morning fog, partial afternoon clearing. Highs will be in the 60s for Point Reyes, 76 for Petaluma, Wine Country, 79 for Napa. Inland areas, though, we get back into the 80s. Moving up along the northwest coast, Redwood National Park, 63 degrees, but those highs staying in the 90s. We've got a lot of smoke to deal with as those fires continue to burn throughout Northern California. Central coast and inland communities will be warming into the 80s and low 90s for today, including the Delta, where we have that nice breeze. You can see access to that will bring those highs into the upper 80s, but as we get farther from that breeze, we're in the low 90s, including some of those eastern valley communities with sunny skies ahead. 90 for Auburn up in the foothills. A look at our regional forecast over the next several days. We'll see a pleasant weekend outlook with highs in the 80s for the mountains, dropping to the 70s next week. 80s and 90s for the foothills, and again for the coast, we're going to keep it pretty consistent. A mix of sun and clouds with highs in the 60s. Our extended forecast, 90s over the weekend, but 80s return next week.
Thank you, Monica, putting the golden in the Golden State. Let's head down I-5 now to Southern California. Meteorologist Vanessa Paz is also tracking the monsoon creeping into San Diego County. Let's go to Vanessa with the details.
And I'm CBS 8 meteorologist Vanessa Paz, hanging out in San Diego, California. This is what it looked like earlier, our view of Mission Bay, and you can actually see SeaWorld in the distance there for anyone familiar with the attractions that we have here to offer visitors. As we take a look, we have people enjoying their Thursday morning. We have some people hanging out along the Mission Bay Boardwalk. Today's going to be pretty nice, although we do have a surge of monsoon and moisture moving into the southwest, impacting our region, and that's giving us the chance for some light showers later on today. In terms of highs, we were already starting to feel a little bit of that mugginess, but this afternoon we are going to expect those daytime highs along the coastal areas to top out in the mid 70s, mid 80s on track for the inland and mountain areas. And we'll be topping out in the low hundreds for our desert. A lot of those numbers that you see for daytime highs that we're expecting are actually a bit cooler than where we should be for this time of the year. All right, taking a look at what's happening aloft at about 500 millibars or so. We have these two systems that are working together, and that's ushering in instability. This is that storm system moving a little more northward, and that's all of that moisture that's trickling in west. So those two things are what's bringing in that surge of monsoon and moisture, and it's also bringing some thunderstorm activity right near the California and Arizona border. All right, taking a look at our rain and cloud futurecast, we do have that chance for some light showers, mainly impacting the mountain areas later on this morning. We stay fairly dry along the coast and inland valleys, but some of that instability could very well spill into the valleys out west. But the chances, as a last check, look quite minimal. If we do see any showers, it will be mainly confined to the county's eastern half. But again, the probability at last check, it's fluctuating, but it looks pretty slim. Taking a look at tomorrow morning, we do have the chance of seeing some light precipitation. Again, all due to that surge of monsoon and moisture kind of sweeping in and out. And then by Saturday, we're looking at much drier conditions with more of that return of the westerly southerly flow, which will enhance the marine layer for those areas along the coast. So here's what the chance of rain looks like day by day. Notice how it is fairly slim towards the end of the week, down to about 8%. It has been fluctuating between about 10 to 20%. So overall, a pretty slim chance of seeing any rain, even for the mountain areas. All right, so taking a look ahead to the weekend, we're slim to none in terms of rain chances. As far as tomorrow's highs, will be fairly similar to what we're expecting for today as we wrap up the work week here in San Diego County. We'll be in the mid to low 70s from Oceanside all the way down to Chula Vista, about 5 degrees warmer for a lot of those inland valleys, close to 80 degrees in Escondido as well as El Cajon, mid 80s on tap for Ramona as well as Julian, and we'll be in the low hundreds for Borrego Springs. So here's kind of a wrap up of what I just mentioned. We have that shower chance in the mountain area, slightly muggy now all the way through Friday, and then looking ahead to this weekend, a lot of things happening. We have Comic-Con, we have Pride, we have the Del Mar races. It looks like the weather will cooperate. For Saturday in Hillcrest, we have that Pride Parade that we will be at. We'll have participation in the parade. Will be in the high 60s around 10 o'clock, and then when the heat peaks, the warmth peaks around the 2 o'clock hour, will be in the low 70s. As we take a look at your coastal 7-day forecast, we'll be in the mid 70s. Not a lot of change. Again, the biggest change is going to be that surge of monsoon moisture, which will give us an uptick in those humidity levels. Taking a look at the inland valleys, we'll be in the high 70s later on this afternoon, shooting up a few degrees. So it's going to be rather warm for the inland valleys come this weekend. That's actually near average. Then looking ahead to early next week, not a lot of change, but notice how temperatures start to climb looking ahead to the latter part of next week. For the mountain and desert areas, we'll top out in the mid 80s tomorrow afternoon, climbing close to 90 degrees by the time we get to Saturday. Little bit of a drop come Monday, and then we're back in the low 90s by next Thursday. We'll be in the low hundreds for our desert communities, close to 110 by Thursday.
Thanks, Vanessa. We've kept our focus on the West Coast, but let's zoom the lens out a bit and take a check on the national forecast. We're keeping an eye on heavy rain to the south straight ahead. Welcome back. It is hurricane season. As air temperatures warm in the summer, so do our ocean waters. Let's get to Jordan Frazier now with the national forecast and a check on the tropics, plus the summer heat in other parts of the country settling in as well.
Hey everyone, I'm Chief Meteorologist Jordan Frazier. We're jumping right into your nationwide watches and warnings. Now there's a whole lot of orange down here, mainly around the southeast. What is this? Much of Arkansas, all the way through about the good half of Tennessee. This is actually going to be heat advisories. We're starting to finally enter into our summer weather pattern across the United States. Instead of dealing with a lot of severe weather and flooding, we're cranking up the heat. But there's one thing that might try to stop it. I'm not looking at a whole lot of progress, but we are tracking the tropics. 40% chance of development of a low pressure system on the northern part of the Gulf, right off the Florida Panhandle. That is kind of bringing a lot of rain right now to much of New Orleans and southern Louisiana. Now I'm not looking at a whole lot of development because that 40%, that is for both the next 48 hours and the next 7 days. So it's been trying to develop really ever since it was back out in the Atlantic. I'm not going to see a whole lot of progress. It's a little bit early in the year to see this kind of development in the Gulf. All right, your next couple of days, expect it to be pretty warm. Here's the forecast highs just for today. A lot of those 90s, upper 90s across the Lone Star State, and that extends all the way through the Appalachian Mountains, even out toward Connecticut. Look at that, Hartford at 93. Even much of Florida, a lot of those 90s. Phoenix in those triple digits, although it's the lower triple digits, actually a little bit cooler by Phoenix standards. Those overnight hours going to stay on the warmer side too, because an influx of clouds and rain chances associated with an incoming cold front. You can actually kind of see that dividing line. It's really passing through the Dakotas and Nebraska right now, but here's where that is. We're going to see a couple of those pop-up showers and storms early in the morning. Small severe risk kind of right along this line with Tennessee, going all the way through Kentucky into the Virginias. I'm not looking at any large-scale threat. It's going to be that small level 1 risk, but maybe even some action out in the Texas Panhandle. Then we kind of localize a lot of this stuff out toward Iowa and into Nebraska. Nebraska as well as South Dakota. Just seeing a quick little burst here or there. A lot of the models themselves aren't supporting a ton of activity, but just a little bit more rain heading into Saturday night and Sunday night, mainly for the eastern seaboard. So we're going to keep an eye on that. Non-severe, but just more and more rain. Hey, it does mean cooler temperatures, so you gotta look at the brighter side for some of this stuff. But how much rainfall can we expect? Well, most of it is going to be kind of right along the line of where that severe threat's going to be. Anywhere from that kind of blue to that red, that's going to be about 1 to about 3 inches possible. Nothing too crazy, not enough to cause significant flooding, with the exception of the northern Gulf. That's because of the low pressure system I was previously talking about. But do we need to worry about any kind of rain in the long term? As a matter of fact, not so much. It's going to stay below average, so you guys stay safe out there this weekend.
Thanks so much. When we come back, it is Thursday, so our weekly drought monitor update is now out. We'll show you how this hot summer weather is now impacting drought status up and down the West Coast. Welcome back. Thank you so much for sticking with us. Every Thursday, the U.S. Drought Monitor is released, and it's Thursday today. Happy Thursday. We almost made it to the weekend, and we just got the latest update. One thing to note, this includes data through Tuesday, so it actually doesn't include any rain or lack of from the last 1 to 2-ish days. So to put it into perspective, let's first show you last week's drought so you can see the change. So let's take that here. We can see what we had last week. So a couple areas I want you to keep your eyes on. The Northwest. You see really in the Northwest, the only red indicating that extreme drought are going to be from Idaho and then into Montana as well. Then as we look down to the south, the red we see there around Arizona and into our kind of southwest, a good chunk of southern Nevada as well, creeping into southern California. That's where we're seeing those red colors. I also want to point out in the Northwest, you see some of that tan there, but what we'll see as we take a look at this week's update, we're going to see the orange expanding. So basically, the moral of the story is the drought is worsening in the West. Okay, so this is last week, so let's now take a step into this week's update. So we'll go region by region, but let's start you wide here. You see that red up there, like I showed you in Idaho and into Montana, that has now expanded. So we're seeing that extreme drought expanding. We are also seeing some of that red you see there right on the southern end of Idaho. That is now, we didn't have any red there before, so we have that extreme drought there as well. Let's take a closer look at some of these areas though. So taking you up to the Northwest, one of the regions that did see that drought worsening is up in Oregon actually. So let me get my drawing tool going and we'll show you where we're seeing that worsening. So this, that wasn't right. That looked like a child did that. Here we go, around here. Okay, so that was one of the areas that has worsened. Oh my goodness, everybody, sorry about that. The red has worsened as well, and then of course the red there on southern Nevada. So those are some of the areas that have introduced the extreme drought from last week into this week. Now we'll take you down to the south as well. These are one of the areas that have already seen a good chunk of red, so really not a lot of change there necessarily, but what we're not seeing is improvement. So yes, we do have those monsoon storms that have been rolling through. Those have helped out just a little bit, but overall, we're still trending extremely dry for this time of the year. One thing I will note, though, is one of the things we've talked about a lot in the last week or two is all of that flooding down in Texas. Texas is actually one of the areas that has seen a little bit of improvement. So while in the West Coast, we're seeing mostly either stagnant or worsening conditions, there are parts of the country that are seeing a little bit of improvement. So once again, this is the drought monitor that is released once a week. So this is the latest drought monitor. You see a good chunk of the West Coast is in that drought status. No one is improving in the West. And part of the reason we care about this is because conditions on the ground are going to impact our wildfire potential, our water supply as well. And this is the time of the year when we're really heading into that wildfire potential. So we do have a couple fires burning right now. Let's look at where the smoke is heading. We can see kind of a lot of the West Coast has that either at least light blue. So that little bit of a haze. You see some of the worst areas are going to be over around Colorado and into Utah as well. We're also seeing a lot of that haze in Oregon, but watch what happens as we see our pattern shift through today and into the Friday as well. We're going to push a lot of that smoke off to the east. So as we look forward, everybody will get a little bit of improvement, at least for that wildfire smoke. All right, that does it for us here on Weather Out West. I'm your host, meteorologist Leah Pizzetti. Thanks for sticking with us today. We'll see you back right here, same time, same place tomorrow.